redhead with macadamia nuts and vegetable coloring and the cola spice, which they described as the perfect rum and coke. And soon there's going to be a fourth one. They're working on a pineapple version, if you can believe that. During the pandemic, they said Springfield has been busy. He said, I've been recording 2 albums, one with a band I put together with Greg Bissonette and Matt Bissonette from the David Lee Roth band back in the day. He said it's very Beatle-driven, very pop, 60s, British invasion-ish. When they asked Sam what he's been doing, he says, I haven't been that prolific during COVID. I have a million ideas, but I'm having a hard time writing lyrics because I'm not a negative person and there's so many negative things going on. It seems like a negative time and I don't want to write about that. That's why I put out the lockdown sessions of cover songs. So that was interesting. They're also thinking about going to Australia, also playing America as well. These two have become best buds now, and they're making mojitos and margaritas with all kinds of fresh ingredients, and they're toasting each other with rum and cokes here, and they're hoping to do a split bill where the two of them could play, and they're apparently on the Catalina Island. They're going to be using the Avalon, which is a casino. It's an old ballroom that holds about 5,000. They're planning a little residency there and a little residency in Vegas, and everybody's doing these Vegas residencies, Dave. It's become the rock thing now, but it's crazy. I tell you, Sammy's becoming more and more like Jimmy Buffett every day. Promoting,
that's his idol.
Oh,
that's
his
idol.
Yeah, he's promoting his liquor. He's hosting residencies. But let's be honest. He's 73. Touring is hard on the body. Going here, going there. They could stay in one place and perform.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's the way to do it.
I tell you this, but this guy busier than ever. He doesn't stop. This guy, it's unbelievable.
You had me a pineapple rum. I'm still thinking about that.
Oh, you like that, huh?
I do.
I do. Get you going. So now, what do you think of him and Rick Springfield as a show? Do you think that works?
Yeah, I totally think that works.
Yeah.
They're both 80s rockers.
Right.
Rick covered one of Sam's songs and had a hit with it.
Yep.
I think that would work well.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick is probably the only guy who looks better than Sam for that age group.
Oh, I know. It's hard to believe he's like the same age as Sam, right? I mean, it's like unbelievable.
Yeah. That'd be a nice double bill.
Well, that would be great. Now, Sammy was reflecting on the 10th anniversary of his book, Red, My Uncensored Life in Rock, which came out in 2011. If you can believe it, it's been 10 years since that book came out, Dave. And he said, I included everything. There's nothing I didn't say. I kind of wish I would have been a little more conservative about the Van Halen years, but I was angry when I wrote that book. They threw me out of the band, and they did it ruthlessly. God rest Eddie's soul. I love him to death, but him and his brother are pretty tough guys to deal with. If they go against you, they made it harder and harder on me in a weird time in my life. I was angry when I wrote that stuff, but I didn't enhance it. Believe me, if anything, I was kind to those gentlemen at the time in their lives. And I'm so glad we came back together. But if I'd waited a little longer, I wouldn't have been so angry, and there wouldn't have been so much angst in it. He says, the last 2 years were really rough. If you choose to write an autobiography, which I did, then you have to have one shot. If you don't tell it all, then you sit there for the rest of your life telling stories, and people are like, why wasn't that in the book? I don't want to have to do that, so it's all right here. He says that, unfortunately, around in 2004, Eddie was an angry drunk, and Eddie was claiming that Sammy was painting a picture of him of something that never happened. But look, I think Sam had a rough experience with the brothers from Balance on, and he was honest. He highlighted some gruesome details regarding Eddie's alcoholism, but they were rough on him, and he worked hard to run the band. It's tough. If you're going to do a book, you have to be open and honest, and frankly, I think Sam needs to do another book, which is 100% on his years in Van Halen. That's what I think.
Yeah, but I think he stretched the truth here and there.
Really?
I think so. I do. Yeah.
Like where?
This was the guy who claimed he was as big as Van Halen in 1984.
No, I know, but that is true. That's a lot of talk. But when you're writing a memoir, I mean, what do you think he was making up?
Well, like I just said, he thought he was bigger than he was.
Right.
And I mean, it's all his perspective, and the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Right.
I think there was some bias to protect his side of the story.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's his perspective on things.
Right.
And,
that's true.
And I would have loved to hear Ed's perspective on things. To read Sammy's book with Van Halen towards the end, you'd almost think he was the victim all the time.
Right, yeah, that's true.
And the fact of the matter was, the Van Halen brothers were workaholics.
Right.
And at that point, Sam really wasn't working so hard. He had just gotten married. He was having a baby. He wanted to take some time off. And we get that. And I think that's fair. But the Van Halen brothers just like to work all the time.
Right.
And they didn't care about anything else. I mean, the ironic part is, once he left Van Halen, Sammy was busy all the freaking time. He was the guy who put out the most albums, the most DVDs.
Good point.
He was doing Tequila. He was doing Cabo Wabo.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was doing all sorts of stuff.
I know.
So to say the guy was lazy and wasn't doing anything was like a joke. But for Van Halen, the challenge with them was, for example, between OU812 and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, it was 3 years. And that's a long time. And part of the reason was Sammy was trying to straighten stuff out at home. And finally, the brothers were just like, look, are we doing an album or not? And that was the issue. So when Sam was like, they were making life difficult for me, I'm sure they were, because it seems like the Van Halen brothers tended to be passive aggressive. And they were also angry at what they perceived as a slight or getting screwed by Ed Loeffler, which probably wasn't true. It's just that Ed Loeffler made certain deals to keep the band together. And when the band members are looking at it after the fact without any context from Ed Loeffler, they're kind of like, what's going on? So, yeah, I really think Sam naturally has a bias towards himself, but I think he really, really has a bias. And so when you say, does he tell the truth? Yes, but the truth as he knows it or as he believes it. And I tend to be a little skeptical of that sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Also, regarding Sam, his birthday bash from this past year, 2020, that was filmed on the beach in Catalina Island is now available to stream on the Coda Collection. We talked about this last Van Halen news, that the Coda Collection, which is codacollection.co, C-O, is an incredible streaming platform that offers all kinds of cool concerts. And Sammy Hagar and the Circle's Birthday Bash 2020 is now available on there. And there's special guests Rick Springfield and Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon, so keep that in mind. Also want to note that Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat hit the auction block, and this was a Frankenstrat that he gifted to mountain guitarist Leslie West, who recently passed away. And I guess Leslie West had given it to his bodyguard, and now the guy's selling it. And guess how much it went for, Dave?
$50,000.
Up. Right on the nose. Right on the nose. $50,000.
Wow, really? That was a guess.
That is exactly how much it went for. There was another Frankenstrat that went up for sale, also signed and played $300,000. And the postage was $350. How do you like that? I mean, this is wild. I mean, you're going to see this now because Ed's gone, and you're going to see more and more of the guitars going up for sale because it's of high value, an all-time high right now because of Ed's passing, and it's morbid and it's sad, but, it's sort of like the way the market goes when icons pass, especially, So you're going to see this kinds of stuff happening all the time. These guitars are going to come out of nowhere, and they're going to go up for sale. So what do you make of that?
Not a surprise. Yeah. It is what it is.
Right, that's the truth. Now, also was released, Spotify released some of Van Halen's numbers, which was interesting to hear, and they did this according to songs, top 10 Van Halen songs on Spotify. We'll go from 10 up. Number 10, Dance the Night Away with 37 million plays. Number 9, Can't Stop Lovin' You with 51 million plays. Number 8, Why Can't This Be Love with 60 million plays. Number 7, Eruption with 65 million plays. Number 6, You Really Got Me, 70 million. Number 5, Ain't Talk About Love, 82 million. Number 4, Hot for Teacher, 96 million. Number 3, Runnin' With the Devil, 131 million. Number 2, Panama with 183 million. Number 1 is Jump. And let's ask the accountant, how many millions of plays do you think Jump had?
What was number 2 again?
Number 2 is Panama at 183 million.
225 million for Jump.
Wow. Well, you weren't even close on that one. You ready for this?
Oh, well.
Hold on to your socks. 439 million. I mean, that is a huge leap.
All right.
Now, the interesting thing here is, shockingly, in the top 10, no Right Now, no When It's Love, or Dreams. Another thing that was shocking was Can't Stop Lovin' You. That was...
I was totally surprised.
Whoa, was I blown away.
The one Sammy song was that one.
Wow. Well, it wasn't the one. They
really
also had Why Can't This Be Love? But how is it possible that Can't Stop Loving You is bigger than Dance the Night Away?
Is Can't Stop Loving You one of those songs that seems to be on a lot of compilations
I
or
have
lists
never
or things
seen
like that?
it on anything other than Balance. So that's shocking. The entire top 7 is Van Halen 1 and 1984. How do you like that?
That doesn't surprise me.
I thought Dance the Night Away would be higher. I also thought maybe in the top 10 would be maybe Ice Cream Man, Finish What You Started. I'm not really sure. But right now really blew me away that did not crack the top 10. How is that possible?
Yeah, very surprising.
Right, very surprising. Now, also, I thought this was interesting. Dave's going to get pissed off about this because Dave doesn't like what ifs. But they did a what-if scenario in Ultimate Classic Rock. They kind of reimagined 5150 with David Lee Roth. Like, if 1986 was a Van Halen album, and they kind of combined the two albums together, what would kind of put together a Van Halen album? And this is what they came up with. Now, obviously, consider the fact that, obviously Sammy wrote for 5150 and Steve Vai wrote for Eat 'Em and Smile, but your suspension of disbelief a little bit here, that within this realm of songs is what would work with a combo of the two. They're saying Yankee Rose, Why Can't This Be Love, Best of Both Worlds, Shy Boy, Summer Nights, Good Enough, Tobacco Road, Big Trouble, Ladies' Night in Buffalo, and Inside. Now, I made a list of my own here, and I'll tell you why. Because I thought Yankee Rose was dead on, but I didn't think Why Can't This Be Love would work with Dave. I think Elephant Gun would make more sense. Best of Both Worlds I agree with. Instead of Shy Boy, I'm going to sneak in Eat Thy Neighbor, which was one of the tracks that they were working on at the time. Summer Nights, I agree with. Good Enough, I agree with. Instead of Tobacco Road, I say Get Up, because I don't think there would be any covers. And also, Big Trouble, I agree with. Inside, I agree with. Even though the lyrics are making fun of David Lee Roth, I think that tone would work. I think closing the album with Ladies' Night in Buffalo would work. What do you think, Dave?
Well, I don't like what ifs to begin with, but I think, mixing and matching David Lee Roth's solo songs with Van Halen songs and saying that would have been the next Van Halen album was disappointing at best and lazy at worst. Because, really, Steve Vai was the guy who wrote those songs. I really don't see how any of that is going to translate into Van Halen. I love Shy Boy a lot. But there's no way. There's just no way that song is going to be on a Van Halen album. And Ladies' Night in Buffalo, again, musically, that's not Van Halen. And lyrically, that was inspired by Billy Sheehan because he's from Buffalo.
Oh, okay.
So I just don't know. I don't know. I was just like, that's, no offense. I was like, that's 2 minutes I'm not going to get back. So...
All right,
that's how I felt.
We'll move on to something more interesting. It's an old interview that was uncovered of Eddie Van Halen and Alex Van Halen, who did a radio interview in 1979 when they were playing the St. Paul Theater. It was on their tour. They were in 10 months of touring. Alex Van Halen said they were on a diet of starchy foods, candy bars, Coca-Cola, no sleep, and no vitamins. Apparently, the reason they were doing the interview is because David Lee Roth had a strep throat, but they said they would never miss a show, and he was going to go on that night. This is a really cool interview. I suggest everybody check it out on YouTube, and it was also on the Van Halen news desk. It's, I don't know, about 11 to 12 minutes long. It's some really cool stuff in here, and Alex really took the lead here. He was talking most of the time. He was talking about how the band really graduated from backyard parties to renting their own halls. He says, by the time we got our record contract, we could draw 3,000 to 5,000 people with no manager, no label, no agent. And guess what they would charge to get in at the door, Dave?
Was it like $3 or something like that?
Right, $250. He says one night the record labels noticed, and it happened in Hollywood. He was talking about the night that Ted came to see him. He says the way they used to record, they used to literally set up their stage equipment in the center of the studio and play in one big room, which is very unconventional for recording process, but this is what worked for them for the early albums with Van Halen. They would set everything up and play, and they would leave all the technical aspects up to Ted and Don Landy, and said that they have been doing this for a number of years, so now they were used to the process, but Ed said that they learned a lot doing Van Halen 1, and that the second album went much quicker. They did